This particular tool here is called a router crafter. It's got a router that sits on top of it, on top of a little moving tray like this, and it's actually got a pulley system on it that when you engage it, the pulley system can actually go back and forth while your piece of wood is turning around circles. It's designed to make spiral chair legs. I have gone through 3 or 4 really nice lathes, and after turning so many flutes and bowls that I've made and other things that we turned so many of, pipe stems, and losing so many of them, many of them, to them breaking and cracking and everything that could go wrong on a lathe, which turning something very fast and having a knife poking in the side of it, even a sharp knife, I learned that I like this guy a lot. I had one for a long time and I sold it. And after I sold it, a friend of mine was kind enough to buy another one for me and push me back into what I was needing to do. So you can see how it works a little bit. If you're interested in getting one, it's made by Craftsman. Well, it's sold by Craftsman. God knows who makes it, but it's a good tool. It's very simple. There's 4 pieces of tubing, aluminum in stock, aluminum headstock, and there's a piece here that comes out that is like your headstock end piece. And I don't know if I told you, but I marked these right in the center so I know where the center of my flute is, just in case me and the router weren't cooperating today. And I use this thing as a center punch too, which is kind of handy. Not only does it make a good center punch, but it also type of stock it is, type of headpiece it is, it's less likely to wallow out. So it's pretty cool. Make sure I get that guys. There we go. Okay. We'll put it back in here. We'll just slide back a little bit and put her in our centerpiece. It's just a bolt that's sharp on one end. It's kind of, like I say, I don't know if they build these things for some other country or whatever, but they're really a very simple and extremely cool tool. It's really hard to go wrong with one of them. And we do make spiral pipe stems and spiral, yeah, if you're a pipe stem maker now you know my secret. We make spiral pipe stems and spiral flutes sometimes with it. This is using the same cove bit, core box bit that I used to make the flute with in the beginning. And I'm going to ease up just a little bit on it. You'll notice that I do this in a couple of passes, only for the purpose that something square doesn't fit perfectly underneath of my tool the way it should. But here we go. And that's pretty well it for what I use this tool for. That little cough there reminds me, you should always know your wood. Some woods create a lot of very soft fiber that can get in your lungs. You should always wear a mask. I've been getting cedar in my lungs for a long time. I don't think it's going to hurt me, but this western cedar is not my kind of stuff. I like it, it just does something to me. So anyway, we're going to zoom out just here for a second and show you the last remaining parts of it, and we'll be ready to have a nice, beautiful, plain flute. Okay, so this is my belt sander I like to keep it up at an angle. I'm wiping my hand on it. But this is a belt that I really like a lot. It's sold at Home Depot, amazingly enough. I say amazingly enough for certain reasons, and if you don't know why, don't ask. Anyway, only Home Depot carries these as far as I know. It's the Diablo brand. It's the same brand that a lot of the router bits and tools and what have you that they carry are. I don't know about where the rest of their stuff's coming from, but this right here has a label on it that says it's from like Switzerland or something. It's zirconium sandpaper. What I like though is the glue that they put it on the paper with. It lasts for a long time. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some serious fibers in it. And me putting my hand on it, a lot of times this particular kind of sandpaper would cut me. This is a piece of 50 grit. So it's very, very rough stuff. I'm just going to rough the flute out a little bit with it. That's done with the 50, going up to an 80 now, just to smooth out some of these lines a little bit and make it a little nicer. We're going to drill this out. Actually, we're going to mill it down with a Forstner bit to give us a nice flat surface for our track area. This is actually a 120-bit sanding belt that we're using to kind of finish sanding a little bit. And from that point, it's always best to do a little hand sanding. No matter what you're going to do for finish on this thing, it's always best to come back and do a little bit by hand. And while we're waiting and sanding, I'm going to go ahead and heat up a rod here with my torch. If you notice, I've got a set of magnets on the side of my drill press here on the front of it, and it kind of lines up with my torch. And you can see this hot rod I was mentioning earlier in the videos. I'll let that get hot while I'm sanding it a little bit by hand here. Kind of roughing out the area for the sound hole. Go ahead and sand that a little bit. give it a nice little area. Kind of clean it up some and kind of smooth it out a little bit, as you can probably see there. Not quite finished sanding yet, but my rod's getting hot. Previously drilled a hole up here. Go ahead and burn that one out. There's no real rule on what diameter this hole should be. I like to make them a little bigger if I can. It gives you the ability to put more air through. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to put more air through. I'm going to go ahead and use some 220 on them, even though I'm probably going to do a little something different to the outside of the flute. Maybe with some fire or something. Kind of partially burn it to help show off the grain a little bit. People really seem to like that. I know I do. If there's any parts of this video that you can't see clearly enough during the recording, or if you just want me to come back and redo another portion or change something or whatever, or what if, please let me know in the video. Feel free to post a comment, send us an email, visit our website and fill out a form, whatever you got to do to let me know. Looks pretty good on the inside there. Nice and almost perfectly round. I don't know if it could have been any more round than that. It's pretty nice. Very nice. All of these holes are going to be 1/4 of an inch, roughly. So the thing about fire is it doesn't do a perfect job, it does an excellent job. I don't like perfect. I like fantastic, amazing. Perfect is pretty plain and dry. Simple. Okay. I'll go ahead and set this rod down and pick up my other one. Kind of a neat piece. You can see it well enough. It's L-shaped on the end and flat on the end and on the inside. It's been used quite a bit, and I'll have to go back and make a new one here. Because as you use it, the metal adheres to the carbon in the wood or the bamboo or river cane or whatever you're making flutes out of. The wood and the carbon start turning into stainless steel, but it's very flaky. And the flakes, when they heat up, they pop off and shoot in different directions. Anytime you use fire, tools, electricity, even water or whatever, you've got to approach it with a great deal of respect. Be careful. Use all of the necessary precautions. Once again, using this finishing paper a little bit, and I know a lot of you professional flute makers are thinking, well, I finish my flutes with 600 grit paper. There's a lot of other things I do to it that's probably going to happen after this video is finished and completed. But I like to see that grain. It's a beautiful piece of wood. Very special piece of wood. Rod's getting hot. If you can see that glow in there, the way we're going to finish this off, I'm going to go ahead and do this piece, make the track, and I'm going to show you a little bit about flattening it out and what have you, because my Forstner bit did leave a little bit of, fiber in there. But we're about to make the track area, and in doing so, it's going to go pretty quick. So you might want to slow it down a little bit, or maybe we'll take some stills and post them on there, what have you. But while the rod heats up again, I'll show you the end product of each step. One thing I like to do that some of you will learn after practice, or if you're intermediate flute maker, you're kind of wondering why yours sometimes sound airy. When I auger this piece down or mill it down with my Forstner bit, I like to put the level of the flute where the track area is. I like it to be very close, not too close because it'll burn through, but very close to the inside thickness or inside level of the flute, what the interior of the flute is like. I like it to be very close to that because the closer you get it there, the more directly the air traveling over this knife edge will affect it. And I should say the more precisely the air will affect it and cause a sound. And what I'm doing right now, you notice me kind of holding this guy up here at an angle. I start off making that hole something of a rectangle. And then during the process, I like to turn the flat part of the tool here inside of the flute and pull it outward. It gives it a nice little knife edge, if you can imagine. It kind of makes it nice and sharp there, actually. A lot of flute makers make their sound hole here rectangle shaped. I like mine to be mostly square. There we go. And if you noticed, I don't know if you noticed in the video or not, but that one that I use as a template actually has a round hole in it. There was a time when I always made round holes. There's a certain something that a round hole does that a square hole doesn't, and for sound. So experiment with that kind of thing. Don't ever be afraid to experiment. If this is your first and possibly only, or maybe one of 3 or one of 2 wood flutes you're ever going to make, you might not want to experiment too much. But certainly there's some room for improvement, modification. But in doing so, I like to keep it as traditional and original as possible. Original and traditional people also improved and modified things. But if you drift away from it too much, it's going to, you might as well call it a recorder. Okay, we're getting really close here. I know it's getting kind of dark on us. But you didn't get to catch my how to make a Cherokee flute video that we made in Moundville, Alabama. My home away from home. Then you might want to pay specific attention to this part. This is how I make my track. I actually burn it in with that tool. Some flutes, that's all I'll do to it. And this thing, it'll play right now. It's just a piece of river cane track that it's laying up here from flutes we were making earlier. But keeping this track area smooth and clean as possible. I like my track areas to be mostly level, and maybe just a little bit of a ramp on the back end. Back here, I'll make it go a really quick incline. Okay, we're really close. I bet that's pretty loud now. Not too bad. Okay, so we're really close there. The last thing I'm going to do, kind of an interesting little tool I've made. Most of you have already figured out it's a paddle bit. I put inside of several pieces of bamboo and kind of Gorilla Glued them in there. Gorilla Glue is not super heat resistant, but it does a pretty good job. It keeps my hand from getting hot. This paddle bit's probably 15 years old. I've been using it for that long for this process. And it's lasted, whereas my rods, I've gone through dozens of them. Look, it's glowing already. You come in here, just kind of flatten this area out just a little bit. In all honesty, I'm probably going to come back after using this temporary block and make a little wolf for it. I've been making a lot of wolf blocks lately, and bears. I like those. My favorite's a little redbird block I make, and you might get to see some of these on our websites, and we've been doing some changes on it, revamping lately. What this does is it, once again, with fire, carbonizes and caramelizes and does everything you can imagine to the wood there. And it also leaves a little burnt spot over here on the edge I'd like to clean off. Although I'm probably, like I said, going to go back and burn this whole flute. And I don't mean destroy burn it, I mean color it with fire. So there's that. Here's our block. Just a little simple block. Let's see what it sounds like. I'm going to use this clamp temporarily. I'm not ready to tie my leather on it yet. That's not too bad. You heard the little squeak there on the bottom note. It's because of the shape of this particular track area, but I'm going to whittle on it a little while, and I might post the flute when it's finished, just so that any of you curious can see what it looks like with the little effigy on it, or totem, or whatever you want to call it. Some people get offended if you call it a totem. Some people get offended if you call it an effigy, I think. But a little critter. I used to call them birds. Too many people in the business laughed at me for that. But traditionally, as a lot of the stories go, the little bird that was put on top of this thing was one who taught us how to make them, even though I don't always use birds. I do like to refer to it as a bird most of the time. Okay, I'm working on it a little bit, but there is a finished flute. You got to see it from start to finish. I believe it probably took us about 35-40 minutes or so to make this whole video. Well, not to make it, but your watching time anyway. There's a flute. Pretty cool. Lots of things to change, lots of things you can do different. I used to use a milling machine. I've used a sanding drum to do this right here on a specific tool I built for it. And this is a way I've been doing it for a long time, and really after 25 years for me to settle on something, it's because I like it and it works. But a wonderful, beautiful flute. Y'all take care. Once again, thanks for watching our videos. If you have any questions, please post them. Let me know how you're doing. I mean, I'd like to hear from you. If you even have some constructive criticism, want to say, hey Charlie, what's that you're standing in there? There's a good reason why we like to do things the way we do. Feel free to ask. It never hurts. If you want to post a video comment, you're welcome to do that. I think we have that unlocked, where you can do that as well. Let us know what you're thinking. And don't forget our website, bluebearflutes.com. Also Blue Bear Arts, if you're interested in looking at all the things that we do. My wife's side of the website, Blue Bear Regalia, you can access from either one of the links that we have there. They're also posted. At the end of the video, you can find them on the sides of our page. More information about us, find us on eBay as Pizza Crew, as well as anywhere else you can get us on Facebook, and God knows there's so many different ways. We don't tweet as much as we Facebook, so anyway, it's been nice. Y'all take care. Please be safe.